Coming up on this week's edition of the Penn State Blitz here on Penn Live, we're going to talk about the blue-white game offensive observations. We've got defensive player observations. We've got recruiting news. And we've got the Penn State Mailbag. Okay, Greg Pickle, we survived the blue-white game. I have to say I love the running clock.
Yes.
That sucker was over in about 12 minutes.
11-minute quarters. Can't beat it.
12 minutes total. It was a nice day. I think I don't know what the crowd was, but
61,000.
There were a lot more people, I think, just enjoying the day, maybe outside the stadium. But you and I paid very close attention to what went on during the blue-white game. And we're going to talk about what we liked most about maybe the offensive players, some standouts. For you, who's at the top of the list?
Yeah, I thought Nick Bowers was impressive. I know he only caught 2 passes, but I think we saw what happened to Mike Gesicki when he was the main man and the only guy Penn State could use at this tight end. And I know Pat Fryermuth's a little bit bigger and able to maybe hold more weight more easily, but I just don't think it's ideal to have one guy at that position with all the banging and everything else play 95% of the snaps. So he really jumped out to me as a guy that can come in, give Fryermuth a couple series off during the season. We heard a lot of good things about him during the spring, and he showed why during the blue-white game. So he was at the top of my list, Bob.
Yeah, and I just wonder moving forward maybe what that actually means for a guy like Zach Kuntz, because it looks like if Nick Bowers stays healthy, they have their top 2 tight ends. It might mean that Zach Kuntz maybe needs another year before he sees the field. Then again, Nick Bowers is a guy that's dealt with injury issues, up until this point. We thought maybe he'd surface a little bit earlier, and maybe this is his time to shine, but you just wonder what it means for Zach. A couple other players to touch on. Noah Cain, the true freshman running back. Yeah. He played for both the blue and the white team. Didn't have a lot of yards, only had a couple of catches. But you saw, Greg, that he's a guy he's a big guy, but he's also nimble. He got out of trouble on a couple different plays. He scored 2 touchdowns, one on the ground, one on a touchdown reception from Sean Clifford. He kind of made Brandon Smith look bad on the touchdown a little bit, although I thought Brandon Smith did some nice things in the game. I think he's a guy that it's going to be tough to say we're not going to play this year. I think he's a guy that can help them, maybe not in a big role, but I think he's a guy that can pick. If it's 3rd and 1, he might be the guy that they might want to give the ball to.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to play. It's a fascinating backfield picture because you have the speed guy with Brown, you have the power guy with Cain, and you have a little bit of both with Ricky Slade, even though he's not necessarily as big as Noah Cain. So I think for Jaywan Sider, it's going to be, and Ricky Ronnie, it's going to be a matter of pushing the right buttons at the right time. And if you push the wrong ones, then things could go sideways in a hurry. But if you push the right ones, this could be an offense that, no matter who wins the quarterback battle, really could be revolving around the 3-headed monster in the backfield.
Yeah, and that's not to say that when Devin Ford gets here for August practices that he doesn't. I mean, he's a talented kid as well. It's a nice problem to have.
Right.
It's really a problem they haven't had, the last couple of years. It's been basically, it was Saquon Barkley in 15, 16, and 17, and then it was Miles Sanders, last year. I think this year, maybe it won't be a committee, but I don't know that whoever is the feature back, and I'm assuming it's going to be Ricky Slade. I don't know that you pencil him in for 15 carries every game. I think it just depends on the matchups, who's hot at the time. I think they're going to ride the hot hand, but I think Noah Cain certainly looks like a guy that really got a lot out of both the winter conditioning and the spring practices. Let's go to another one of your maybe offensive standouts.
Yeah, I thought that maybe not the standout's the right word, but I think that Sean Clifford showed that he should be involved in the quarterback battle. But the way James Franklin talked, Bob, I don't think Tommy Stevens lost any ground in this race. I don't know if Sean Clifford gained any, maybe a little bit, but to me, it's still Stevens' job to lose going into the fall and summer camp, of course. He just has to be healthy. As long as he's healthy, I have no reason to think that Sean Clifford can actually win this job.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of an if, though. I just think that, he's got to practice for a full month, and as talented as Tommy is, I think there's got to be some rust involved. There just has to be. He really hasn't played, any meaningful quarterback minutes. Even in 2017, he was more of a guy that they used with Trace in the game. He was either in the backfield or split out. I just think that, it's one thing to be healthy, but he's got to get a lot of reps in August because I think Sean has definitely. I thought it was pretty close at the start of spring, and I think there's no question that Sean has even narrowed it further. I was also actually impressed by Will Levis. I hadn't really seen him, and that was a really nice throw to Dan Chisena, who was obviously one of the stories of the game, put on scholarship after his 59-yard touchdown catch. I thought Dan is a guy that is now going to force the coaching staff to say, look, he's 6'2", 205 pounds, he can run sub 4.4. Maybe he's not a top 6 wideout, but we got to find a way to use his speed. And I think if it's not going to be on offense, I could see him causing some problems on special teams. This was before your time. This in 2005 when Penn State had Michael Robinson and Paul Posluszny and Alan Zamitis and Tom Bahali. They won the Big Ten championship. They had a special teams coverage standout by the name of Ethan Kilmer, who was about the same size as Dan Chisena and was about as fast. He was actually drafted by the Bengals. So I think you can use him on special teams. I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm going to let you do all the talking on the defense as we talk about the defensive standouts. Because I don't know that there was one that really jumped out to me, so I'm hoping you were going to bail me out.
Well, so I thought it was notable that Fred Hansard was actually involved in the game. I don't know if anybody necessarily stood out on defense, but I thought it was a good sign for Penn State because it knows Antonio Shelton, P.J. Mustipher, Robert Windsor's its top 3.
Yeah.
After that, we've heard some things about Damian Barber. We've heard some things about Judge Culpepper, but I think that might take some time to get into the flow of things. Fred Hansard's played the position before. He's played it at the college level. Not a lot, but I thought it was a good sign after that injury he suffered last year to see him back out there. You would expect for him to be full go come summer camp and a part of Sean Spencer's rotation. I mean, Yetur Gross-Matos made a couple nice plays in a limited amount of time that he was on the field. And Jason Owe, I think, just continues to flash.
Yeah.
When he is matched up against somebody at the tackle spot, if that tackle has any rep where his feet are like cement, Owe is going to be in the backfield.
Any hesitation at all, and you saw it on that one sack. He was in the backfield so fast.
Right.
I think it might have been Wiggin.
Yes.
Who was? Is it Anthony Wiggin, the offensive tackle?
Yep.
And it just wasn't very fair. He showcased his speed, and I think, when you see in the fall, if everyone's healthy, when you see Tony, Shaka Tony, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Jason Awe on the field at the same time, I think the Penn State fan base is going to have a lot to get excited about. One more defensive note I think we should discuss. Did you get the impression coming out of spring that Lamont Wade is kind of at the one safety position 1 and Sutherland's 1A? Garrett Taylor's the returning starter.
Yeah.
I really thought maybe Sutherland was going to be the guy. I'm not so sure. And every look we got in spring, I think Lamont Wade was the guy working with the 1.
Yeah, so it does look to me like Wade will be the guy that goes into summer camp with the foot ahead in that battle. The question I have is what impact, if any, will Jaquan Brisker make when he gets to campus? Lackawanna College transfer, JUCO All-American last year.
Yeah.
He's going to fight for the job. There's no question. I think that obviously Lamont Wade, between experience in the system and another spring practice, has a chance to take another step forward in summer camp, and that could ultimately leave him ahead of Jaquan Brisker too, as it appears to be with Sutherland and some of those other guys, John Patrician. So, yeah, I would say Wade's the guy for now, and we'll see what Brisker can do in August.
Okay, it wouldn't be a blue-white weekend without some recruiting news.
Right.
Talking to you before the game, you felt like it could be really quiet because Penn State didn't really have any official visits. James Franklin talked about it. Because they can get kids to visit unofficially, they don't really do a lot on blue-white weekend anymore. But lo and behold, they came out of the weekend with a couple of commitments. Let's talk a little bit about the kids that they got and what you like about them.
Yeah, R.J. Adams, the first one that happened before the game, 3-star offensive lineman from Woodbridge, Virginia. He's a pretty big kid for his age. He'll play inside at the college level, and I think that will ultimately go a long way in shoring up Penn State's offensive line crop in this class. I know they'll still be looking for a couple more guys, but the one thing to watch there is can he convince his high school teammate, Antoine Sampa, the number 1, one of the top linebackers in the country and a 5-star linebacker, can he convince him to follow him to Penn State? We'll have to wait and see. Then a little bit later, Cole Brevard, 4-star defensive tackle from Indiana, also committed. One of the guys that James Franklin alluded to before the game, they can get kids from out of the region to pay their way to come to campus. Yeah. With Brevard, he paid his way with his family to come from Indiana to State College, make the commitment. Now he'll be able to use his official visit either after the season or for the Michigan game if he wants to. So he'll be back on campus. 2 really good gets here for Penn State. They weren't necessarily competing against the nation's top schools for either of these guys, but they're still very talented ones to fill out this now top 10 class.
Is there such a thing as a burgeoning Penn State pipeline into Indiana? Tommy Stevens is from Indiana. Matt Kippenhammer, I believe, the wideout who wasn't practicing football in the spring because he's playing baseball for the baseball team, is an Indiana kid. Is there such a thing as an Indiana pipeline, or is this just
Ricky Ronnie's done a nice
coincidence?
job out there in the Midwest, and Indiana's one of those places that he kind of has a hold on, along with Illinois. So I think you'll continue to see Penn State recruit the area. Sometimes they're going to get in pretty far with some of these kids and not get them. Other times they'll pick up a few, a guy here, a guy there. So it's been a pretty successful recruiting ground for Penn State, even if it's just getting to the end of the top threes, the top fives, not getting the kid, but being in it all the way. Kids in Indiana certainly know what Penn State is about, what it represents, and what it could do in the future.
All right, I think it's time for the mailbag.
That's right. Are you ready?
I'm not ready, but let's do it anyway.
All right. The first question for you, Bob, is that Penn State hits the road here for the blue-white game, for recruiting after the blue-white game, the coaching staff for the spring evaluation period. The players, on the other hand, finishing out the academic semester, then they have to hit the weight room. Who's one guy you want to see bigger come August camp?
Ooh, bigger. Well,
so we talked about Zach Kuntz earlier. He could fall into that equation. Maybe a Charlie Coucher, maybe somebody else.
I'll tell you somebody else. I think that I think he did get bigger, and I actually liked. I mentioned him kind of in a little bit of a negative light on the Noah Cain touchdown, but Brandon Smith, I think, is a guy that they really, really like, and his movement skills are very impressive. I think he can play a couple different linebacker positions. He's a guy that even if we're talking about 3, 4, 5 pounds, I think if he can just add a little bit more weight, that would really enhance his chances of maybe seeing the field in the fall. Lance Dixon, the other linebacker that we saw, I think he had a sack or a tackle for loss in the game. I don't know that he needs to add more weight. You look at it; he's listed at like 213 or something like that. I don't know that they want to get him much bigger because he's kind of like the hybrid, a guy like. Cole Farmer was, who can kind of play in space and is almost like a safety linebacker hybrid. I don't know that he needs to get bigger, but the two guys that come to mind for me are Kuntz, I would say, and also Brandon Smith. Although I do think Brandon Smith looks like he's added some size, but he's a guy I think if he wanted to eat a fourth meal every day, it might be to his benefit.
No question. Okay, James Franklin pointed them both out after the game, which that there were a few more drops. Or a few less drops, rather. They were not happy with the number of drops they had, and they wished that they had run the ball better with the first-team offensive line. These were both problems last year.
Correct.
Reason for concern, or just one public practice blip on the radar?
I'm going to go with blip on the radar. I think the offensive line is breaking in a couple of new players. I think they're going to be Mike Miranda, who we didn't see in the game. I just wonder why they probably held him out for either something minor or something came up. We got to see, I think, C.J. Thorpe a little bit more.
Yeah.
And also Rasheed Walker, I think, will only get better with more reps. And early in the game, K.J. Hamler dropped a ball that he could have caught. It was a little bit high, and I think Freiermuth dropped one as well.
Yeah.
Just the way that the new receivers coach, Jared Parker, has kind of structured things. I think James Franklin used the word aggressive to describe his coaching style. I just feel like he's going to hold these guys a little bit more accountable. And I think that it's going to pay off. I just think that you'll see them make a lot more catches because they missed some easy ones last year that could have maybe changed a couple of games around. I think it was just it just wasn't a couple of receivers' days for the blue-white game.
All right, last question, Bob. Penn State opened spring practice in the middle of March. Before that first practice, there were a lot of top 25s that came out. Had Penn State. Some were 9, some were 12, some were 14. Top 20 for sure, top 15 in some. Maybe there was a top 10 out there. I'm not sure, though. But at any rate, did everything you see and saw over the first 15 practices in 2019 for this Penn State team, has it changed the way you consider the outlook to be come the fall and the opener with Idaho and how things actually shake out come November?
So much is dependent upon what they're gonna get from Tommy Stevens. That's a huge variable to me, and they have to make a decision. I just think that when James meets with us after August practices, you're gonna be able to tell if Tommy's coming along, because I just really think he needs to work. I think he's going to be a little bit rusty. It's to be expected. I really like their quarterback depth, but to me, this on paper, this is a 3 or 4 loss team going into August, and that could change if maybe Tommy has a really good August camp. But I mean, they're going to go as far as ultimately most teams go as far as their quarterback can take them. I mean, you just look around the Big Ten. As Haskins got better, Ohio State got better. Michigan didn't get great quarterback play, I don't think. He was just okay. Patterson was just okay. Michigan State had quarterback issues because Lewerke got hurt. So they need a quarterback that's going to be able to make plays in the fourth quarter. And Tommy might be that guy. But for me, it's a 3 or 4 loss team until Tommy shows us that he's ready to take the bull by the horns.
All right, there you go.
All right, that's it for this edition of the Penn State Blitz here on Penn Live. Who knows what we're going to talk about next time we meet?